Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome to qualifying day in Las Vegas, the first qualifying day ever here in Vegas. And fingers crossed, it will not be a farcical and controversial day like it was yesterday for practice 1 and practice 2. Yeah, what happened yesterday happened. Let's try and hopefully move on from that and have at least a smooth rest of the weekend. And the fuckery from what happened yesterday, by the way, has only continued since my qualifying preview stream finished up about 7 hours ago, which I will get into before we get into practice 3, which you can see starts in 13 and a half minutes time. But yeah, let's just hope it's smooth from now on. There's no more issues because I really can't be bothered with it. It feels like we've already had an entire Grand Prix event with the amount of, stories about what's happened so far from, this Grand Prix. So let's just hope for, again, a smooth weekend from now on. Hope you guys are doing well, no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're from. Hope you're all having as best a time as possible. And I hope today you will be joining me in watching along practice 3 and later qualifying here in Vegas. And thankfully, there are actually fans in the grandstands for this session, unlike practice 2 yesterday. There is a poll running, by the way, as well, that I just want to let you guys know of in the live chat, where I've asked you guys who will take pole position today for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The options are Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, and Fernando Alonso. Out of those 4 drivers, who do you think will take pole position here in Vegas? I will leave that poll running until the start of Q3, which will be in nearly 5 hours from now. So we've got plenty of time until qualifying, and practice 3, fingers crossed, will be all good. But yeah, before we get into this session, let's first get into the what's happened with, I guess, further reaction to what happened yesterday. So obviously I talked quite a bit about, what happened yesterday in my qualifying preview a few hours ago. But there has been even more stories coming out of what happened. The Las Vegas Grand Prix organizers, along with Formula One, issued a statement, how long ago? About 3 or 4 hours ago. And the statement was simply them just explaining what happened. There were no apologies, no, talk of refunds or anything like that. And simply, and it did actually say it in the statement itself, that it happens. That's literally what it says in the statement. It happens. That's their excuse for what happened yesterday. No, sorry that we couldn't, put on a good show yesterday. Sorry that you only got to watch 9 minutes of track action and you had to stay up until the middle of the night and then get kicked out by the police. No apologies about that. No, it was just, this is what happened, and yeah, it happens. Please forget about it. And also they made sure to emphasize in that statement that they hope the fans understand. Maybe some of them will, but a lot of them, are not going to care. They're going to be very angry, and rightfully angry. But then we have heard further news, and initially we expected this further news to be about a possible refund for the fans that attended on Friday. And there was some news with that. And this particular scheme, and that's the best way to call this, really, a scheme, that they offered towards people that only had a ticket to come to the, I think the practice 1 and practice 2 yesterday, that obviously didn't get their money's worth. Instead of getting a refund, they were given, or have been given, a $200 voucher that they can only spend in a Formula One shop. So, no refund, and just more corruption, basically. Yeah, it just absolutely stinks what they're doing. And they're just showcasing more and more, like Toto Wolff yesterday was in, what he said in the press conference. The people running Formula One, they don't care about us. They treat us literally like peasants. They wish we would just, tune in, buy their shit, and just not say anything. And when we do say, things and criticize, they wish firmly that we would just all fuck off. Um, that's absolutely what they think of us. They think of us as little people. That's all they, think about when it comes to us. The only thought they have when it comes to us really is, what money can we extract out of, those people? That's all they care about. There's no, no type of communication, positive communication with the fans. No relationship building at all. It's just, we want your money, and after that, we couldn't give a flying fuck what happens to you. And that has been clearly illustrated in the last couple days. And I really hope from now on that people fully understand, when you buy a ticket for these events, who you're dealing with. Because these people, they're not, in terms of, the way they run their business, they're not good people, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying they're evil, definitely not that bad, but they're not good people in a business sense. Anyway, let me get rid of this countdown for a second, because I want to get into the results of practice 2 yesterday that was 90 minutes long and held in front of no fans and was in the middle of the night. But let's go through what happened in the 90-minute session. Charles Leclerc ended up quickest, half a second quicker than his teammate Carlos Sainz, who has to take a 10th-place grid penalty, even though him and the team did nothing wrong because of what happened with the, Carlos's car being so damaged over the manhole cover. Yeah, he has to take a 10th-place penalty. What a complete joke that is. Fernando Alonso 3rd, Sergio Perez in 4th, Bottas 5th, Verstappen 6th, Red Bull not so quick yesterday, but I think we will see improved pace today. But I still think Ferrari have the best quali pace here this weekend. And they got Hulkenberg 7th, Stroll 8th, Hamilton 9th, Albon 10th. Valtteri Bottas yesterday, very good. Watch out for him today. He hopefully will keep that up. And also Aston Martin looking once again a bit stronger. And then the bottom half of the order, you have Norris, Russell, Magnussen, Piastri, Gasly, Ocon, Tsunoda, Zhou, Ricciardo, and Sargent. McLaren should be better. I don't think they'll be massively better, but it should be, better in terms of them getting at least one car into the top 10. AlphaTauri, I hope, can be a bit stronger. But yeah, we'll see what happens in this practice session as I cut back to here, and I'll just get the timer back on the screen as we've got 6 minutes to go until practice 3 begins. So yeah, in terms of this session, what I'm looking out for is, are Ferrari still comfortably quicker than the other teams over a single lap? Can Red Bull, how much closer can they get? Will we see improvements by Mercedes and McLaren? Will Aston Martin keep up their great performance? Will Valtteri Bottas keep up his great performance? That's really what I'm looking out for in this practice session, which of course will be an hour long. And then after that, we'll have a 2.5 hour gap and build up to qualifying. Of course, local time will start at midnight, and here in the UK will start at 8 a.m. So, yeah, we've got a long stream ahead and plenty of stuff to get into in the next few hours. The F1 intro now begins to play. So I'll cut to the watch-along screen in a moment. But before we get into the session itself, just want to say quickly, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because we do watch-alongs for qualifying, the race every weekend, and we do, previews, reviews, all of that stuff. And this is a great place to be. If you want to keep bang up to date with everything going on in Formula One. And make sure, if you haven't already, to smash that like button. We're currently on 11 likes. Let's try and get up to 20 plus likes if we can in the next, say, 15 to 20 minutes. So, and Yanni saying in the live chat, Otto Wolff, or Toto Wolff, he means, or they mean, got Hamilton and Russell to toe the line, praise the track. Merc has gone full whore now. Yeah, Toto Wolff, after what he said yesterday, is just an absolute clown. And people rightfully been saying online as well, if that happened to one of his cars, he would be saying something completely different, and he knows it. But that's how much of a disingenuous person he is. I just think he's, and I think he has displayed this more and more. He's incredibly selfish. I don't think he cares about the greater good, does Toto. I think he purely cares about anything that benefits him. And I think he's one of the people, definitely one of the team principals in the sport that displays that more obviously than others. As F1 intro just finishing up, the 3 tyre compounds this weekend, the 3 softest in the Pirelli range, the C5, C4, and C3, of course, with the track temperatures being, a lot colder than what they normally are for F1 races. That's why we've got 3 softest compounds. As you can see on my broadcast, the not F1 sphere, the Las Vegas sphere, there is Fernando Alonso on it yesterday. And that is the only thing that's been flawless this weekend. Be underway in a couple minutes time. And I think what I'll do is I'll hide that timer and just cut to the watchalong screen. And of course, yeah, practice 3 will be an hour-long session. I'll sync up the timer though at the 59-minute mark. So I'll get that timer going on screen when we get to that point. As they're just showing Ted Kravitz here, just showing or doing a camera shot of the grandstands, and can't really see how many people are in the grandstands because they've darkened that area. So I don't know, if there's actually that many people in the grandstand. Which I've got to be honest, if the stands today are a lot emptier than what was maybe forecast, I wouldn't be surprised, and I think that honestly would be justified after what happened yesterday. But to me, it doesn't look that packed. I know it's only practice 3, but it doesn't look very very packed to me. Ed Kravitz on the Sky F1 broadcast stood outside the Red Bull garage, and stood outside the garage of car number 1, Max Verstappen. But Max Verstappen's car, no tyres on it at the moment. Max in the garage? Don't think he is. So looks like it's going to be quite a bit of time until Verstappen is out on circuit. As I'll let you guys know when the session has officially got underway once I've been notified that we are underway. Yeah, no sign of Verstappen yet. And actually, no, the grandstands are thankfully full up, which I'm sure the promoter of this event is happy to see. I mean, he after the criticisms that Max Verstappen had about the Las Vegas Grand Prix event, the Las Vegas Grand Prix promoter weirdly and stupidly came out and said that maybe Max is nervous. Well, I bet the Vegas Grand Prix promoter after yesterday's events was definitely very, very nervous. As there's Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri garage with a beanie on. And yes, it is that cold. Yeah. Doesn't look like we're going to get a ton of action straight away. Oh, I can't believe they put that on screen. They put a thing up on screen with Daniel Ricciardo and a little graphic, and the text says, when asked for his F1 wish list in 2017, he simply said a race in Vegas. Why the fuck would you even put that on the screen? Jesus Christ. There you go. 59 minutes remaining in this final practice session. And I will let you know when we get proper, lap times being set out there. The best lap time from yesterday was a 1:35.5, was it? From Charles Leclerc. So that is the lap time to remember in terms of when we're looking at this session. Yeah, when we're looking at this session, understanding how quick certain teams are going, as we do have a McLaren, it looks like, of Oscar Piastri on the circuit. And just heading into turn 4, end of the first DRS zone. Yeah, McLaren yesterday, not very competitive. They were probably the most disappointing team in practice yesterday. So out of those, teams that were disappointing yesterday, I think they're probably the one to look out for. Other disappointing teams, you'd probably say, Mercedes to a certain degree. I was kind of expecting it from them. AlphaTauri, though, another team that were quite disappointing. Piastri is just warming up. A set of hard tyres he's on. Won't be very warm around this track. From what I heard, I did not watch practice 2 yesterday, but from what I heard, on the soft compound tyres, because of the very cold track temperatures, it did take, what do you call it? It did take, really, to get the best lap time out of the soft tyres, it took 2 flying laps. So, if you're on, say, a set of mediums or hards in this session, then probably going to take quite a few laps to get, the absolute best lap time out of those tyres. And given what I've seen so far, as Oscar Piastri is coming back into the pit lane, I think we are heading on Sunday for a one-stop race. One, because it's only a 50-lap race, but also, what do you call it? The tyres are, not really going to overheat around this track. One, because there's not really any long, fast corners, but also because of, again, the very cool track temperature. So, could be a one-stop race on Sunday, which definitely is not going to help the entertainment level of the race. But we are about to see Fernando Alonso join the circuit on a set of hard tyres. We've got other cars out on track, but we're not currently seeing them, unfortunately. Now looking at the Ferrari with a lot more white on it this weekend, special livery, and it's the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who was quickest in the infamous practice 1 and also practice 2. I will say with this special Ferrari livery, I don't mind white on the Ferrari car. There's been, Ferrari liveries in the past where there's been white on the car. I just think there's a bit too much white on the livery, and it doesn't look that good, in my view. It's actually Carlos Sainz that we're looking at. I was thinking it was probably Sainz because yellow T-bar. A Sainz did quite wide at first corner on cold medium tyres. Yeah, doesn't look like there's a lot of grip out there for the drivers. Sainz brakes heavily into turn 4. This middle sector, though, that Carlos Sainz just entered, as they're showing a replay of Sainz going wide at turn 1, which we've seen quite a few times so far this weekend. In the middle sector yesterday, Ferrari were half a second quicker pretty much than every other team. Well, not every other team, but they were half a second better in the middle sector than the next best team, which were Haas. And then Red Bull were just behind Haas as well. So that middle sector, really special for the Scuderia yesterday. So interesting to see whether they'll keep that up today. Pass of Kevin Magnussen in the garage, and you're now looking at Carlos Sainz, who's backing off on this lap, probably to start a new one. As we've got Valtteri Bottas up to P1, Zhou Guanyu up to second. Then we've got Russell up in third. Carlos Sainz backing off there, gone up to fifth as he really slides his way through turn 1 and 2. Yeah, it is Bottas, Zhou, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, and then Leclerc, only 6 times on the board at the moment. Oscar Piastri on an outlap. The best time so far are 1:39.8 from Bottas on the soft tyre, so very slow lap times currently. Sainz coming through the heart of the middle sector, and he's about to complete the middle sector in a moment on the mediums, and he's done a purple first sector. As all traffic ahead in Alfa Romeo. And yeah, distracted him, I think, and he ran a bit wide. Thankfully, didn't hit the barriers. Coming on to now the back straight, second DRS zone, where the incident yesterday happened. Sainz now braking hard into the final chicane. Russell has gone up to second. And Carlos Sainz might go quickest with this lap. We'll see. I don't think he will, actually. And here he comes. And no, he does. By half a second, Carlos Sainz goes quickest. Sainz, Bottas, Russell, and then Hamilton, as Charles Leclerc now goes quickest for Ferrari. Is a replay of a driver there locking up the outside front into the chicane, the final chicane, and it was Zhou Guanyu. Big flat spot, front right tyre. Yeah, it's Leclerc, Sainz, Bottas, Russell, Hamilton, Zhou. Leclerc quickest on a 1:38.9. 3.5 seconds slower than his best time yesterday. Over GSR, $5 super chat. Thanks for that, mate. Thank you for the stream as usual. I predict absolute Stroll domination. I don't think I'll read any more of that out, but yeah, here's for the super chat, mate. That's Kevin Magnussen. Is on his first flying lap, and he's on the medium compound tyres, and has gone slightly quicker than Leclerc in sector 1. The Haas also was very quick in sector 2. We do know that the Haas, in terms of the design, does share quite a lot of similarities to the Ferrari, so maybe that it's just the way the Ferrari type design is why they were those two teams in particular, so quick in the middle sector. As Valtteri Bottas goes quickest on a 1:38.3. Bottas's best time from yesterday was what, a 1:36.2 or 1:36.3, so a couple seconds away from his best time of the weekend. Kevin Magnussen onto the back straight. The chicane, really closely following a Ferrari through the final chicane. We'll get a very good slipstream, though, from the back of Leclerc. Going to overtake Leclerc through the final corner. Is he? No, Leclerc goes for the outside line. That was a bit close. But Kevin Magnussen briefly goes up to 5th. But Russell goes back up into that position. So Magnussen now in 6th place. 7 times on the board so far. As we're, 12 minutes in to practice 3. This slightly. Now looking at Charles Leclerc pushing very hard through the final couple corners of the middle sector. See how he gets through turn 12, which is the final corner before the back straight. And he's a second up on Bottas this lap on the medium. So this is a good start to the day, the evening, for Ferrari and Leclerc. Teammate not too far ahead of him. Leclerc moving a bit in braking, most stable, but gets through it all good. Now flat out to the line, and Leclerc is going to go quickest, surely. And yes, he does, by almost 0.6 of a second over his teammate Carlos Sainz, who briefly went quickest. So Leclerc does a 1:36.8. As here's a replay of Kevin Magnussen and the close moment he had with the Ferrari. As then on the radio, Leclerc completely taking the piss there. And the engineer for Magnussen saying, yeah, completely. Maybe a bit, but it wasn't as close as it looked off board. Valtteri Bottas, I think, here is on an improved lap on soft compound tyre. I'm going to say, yeah, in terms of the difference between the tyre compounds this weekend, it should be a half a second difference from one compound to the other. So from the soft to the medium, half a second difference, and then from the medium to the hard, another half a second. So that lap time from Leclerc is pretty quick. It's not as quick as they can go in this session. I'm sure they can go a bit quicker, but is pretty quick to start with. As Bottas does improve his lap time, but stays in 3rd, 2.5 down on Leclerc. As we've got Piastri and Norris and Stroll and Alonso on a flying lap. And also got the 2 Alpines on an out lap. And so is Nico Hülkenberg. Russell out there still improving his lap times, but staying 5th. Now looking at the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, who also, people are not really talking about this enough. His, with that manhole cover yesterday, his chassis was broken after hitting it. And I think he hit it before Carlos did. So it wasn't just Carlos Sainz that suffered damage. I think they had to replace the chassis on this Alpine. Ocon is on his first flying lap of the day, as we're currently looking at Pierre Gasly a bit further ahead of him on the soft compound tyre on his first flying lap. Alpine yesterday were pretty slow, so hoping for a bit of an improvement today as Lando Norris goes up to 7th. And Piastri, with his first time, goes up to 5th. Stroll goes up to 8th for Aston Martin. As Pierre Gasly is on the back straight, and by how he's veering around, it looks like he is very gently warming his tyres up, but also trying to avoid some of the bumps and even that manhole cover from yesterday. As the Fernando Alonso has set his first lap time, but he has gone last of all the runners that have done a time so far. Alonso in 11th. Lando Norris here in the McLaren. Slow-mo of him locking his outside front going into turn 5, turn 6. Actually running quite wide. Not good there for Lando, who did have a reliability issue yesterday. There was some sort of issue. I didn't quite read into it, but yeah, he did have some sort of reliability gremlin. As Pierre Gasly now goes 11th, Ocon up to 12th, and Hulkenberg is now 14th. Daniel Ricciardo is on an outlap. The 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Williamses and the other AlphaTauri of Tsunoda, though, still have not come out onto the track, as Lance Stroll goes 5th. Carlos Sainz, by the way, is now quickest on a 1:35.9. Yellow flag in Sector 1 and Sector 2. As Alonso goes up to 3rd, and now, thankfully, it is green flag. So maybe going into turn 4 or something, there was a driver that went too deep. So yeah, Alonso up to 3rd now. Yeah, that time from Carlos Sainz, I think, is quicker than what he did yesterday, even on the medium. So good pace, very good pace there from Carlos. Pierre Gasly improves up to 4th, and then his teammate passes him by going 3rd. Go Ocon 3rd, Alonso 4th, Gasly 5th. We're looking at Nico Hulkenberg. Not really done a proper lap time so far. I think he's about to complete one. And yeah, he goes up to 7th place. Still, though, pretty slow compared to what he did. Okay. I think just saw there on the graphic. I think Max Verstappen is now on an outlap, so we'll see what he can do. Straight out of the blocks as that. Oh, that was a very hairy moment with a Ferrari there of Leclerc. Then Magnussen tries to dive bomb him back into turn. What corner is this? Turn 8, turn 9. So Magnussen was going slowly. Leclerc jumped the corner by trying to get past him, and then Magnussen dived back up the inside and I think might have touched him. Magnussen, I don't know if this was before or after, that's why the yellow flag came out, because he went down the escape road at turn 4. Daniel Ricciardo, I can see, has done his first time, but it is not a proper lap time. And actually, no, Max Verstappen still in the garage. So it is Perez, his teammate, who's on track. And we'll find out what his first lap time will be of the day in a moment. Because Sky F1 have gone to an ad break. So we'll have to wait and see once they come back. Remember though, guys, because we have such a long while to go until qualifying begins. Qualifying begins in 3 hours and 10 minutes from now. Make sure to post, whatever comments you want in the live chat, F1 related, of course. Just your general thoughts as to this weekend's Grand Prix, your thoughts as to what's going on track and also off the track as well. So, yeah, make sure to post, as many comments as you can about going on this weekend, because I am probably going to have quite a bit of time this morning reading out your comments in the build up to qualifying. Of course, we will have a 2.5 hour build up. I do have a couple things planned, but yeah, I will be reading out some of your comments. That gap. Let's see if I can find comments quickly now in the chat. By the way, hello to Tracy Woodbridge, who says, hi, Jez, it's so great I found you, with you from South Africa. Great to have you along. And Tracy also saying, Max is serious about not enjoying this whole scene. As he says, he is here as a sportsman, hates all the pomp. Yeah, and, with the type of person that Max is, and of course I've never met the guy, but from what I've seen of him, in interviews and just how he acts, he does, I wouldn't say he's necessarily a proper introvert, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was a slight introvert. I think I think with Max, he's very much like Kimi Räikkönen in terms of he just wants to turn up at an F1 weekend and just get on with it and drive. He just doesn't want the whole bullshit of, the off the track stuff. And that's why, he's, been as critical as he has been in the last couple days. And, I mean, let's say I was a Formula One driver, I would be the same, very critical, because, and I wouldn't like it at all, because, I mean, for one, I am a very introverted person. But I just don't like all that showbiz type stuff. I think it's really over the top. But yeah. Guy, I think in a moment we're going to come back from the ad break. And here we go. Other updates we have to the order. 25 minutes in. Charles Leclerc now gone back to the top of the timesheets. He's now 0.03 of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz. As Max Verstappen on the soft compound tyre is on a lap. Verstappen exiting the final chicane. Yellow flag in Sector 1 and Sector 2. And now green, so someone's probably gone down the escape road of turn 4 again as Verstappen comes to the line and only goes third on a set of soft compound tyres. That's worrying for Red Bull. I know it's only the first lap, but that's a quicker lap time than he did yesterday in practice 2. But he's a quarter of a second slower than Leclerc when Leclerc's on the medium. And the medium should be about half a second slower than the soft. So that is not good for Red Bull, but it is very good for Ferrari so far. Of course, we've still got a bit of time to go, so things obviously could change. But it is Leclerc from Sainz, Verstappen, Hülkenberg now in 4th place, and then Gasly, Alonso, Perez in 7th. Perez has also done his first lap time on the soft compound tyre. And then you've got Ocon 8th, Stroll 9th, and Lando Norris in P10. Then Magnussen 11th, Piastri 12th, Bottas 13th, Ricardo 14th. Tsunoda 15th. Hamilton 16th. Russell 17th. And then Zhou, Sargent, and Albon, I think, complete the rest of the field. Yes, they do. Here's a replay of Alex Albon going slowly and then going off the track, I think probably to let someone through. Yeah, let through the two McLarens who were very close to one another. Carlos Sainz is on an outlap, and here is Esteban Ocon on the soft compound tyre. Better run. Really pushing. Now completes the middle sector. 3/4 of a second down, though, on Leclerc after the first two sectors. Gasly's time, though, up in 5th place of, I think, a 1:36.5 is already quicker than what Alpine did yesterday. Yesterday, the best lap time Alpine did was a 1:37.3 or a 1:37.4. So Alpine already looking much better. Sergio Perez on a very quick lap on the soft compound tyre. 0.6 of a second quicker than Leclerc after the first two sectors. As Ocon goes up to 6th place. Kevin Magnussen pops up to 10th. Logan Sargent has gone up to 6th place. Perez looks like he ran slightly wide into the entry of that final chicane. As here comes Perez, and will he go quickest? Probably will. And yes, he does by 3/4 of a second. Brilliant lap by Sergio Perez. That is a lot more the Red Bull pace that I think they would have been expecting this weekend, as Yuki Tsunoda now goes up to P12. And that is the best lap time of the weekend so far from Perez, a 1:35.1, as Charles Leclerc is now on an outlap. I wonder if Leclerc might, going on to the set of soft compound tyres, as Alexander Albon goes up to 6th. And Albon with that lap doing a 1:36.3, which is, I think, about half a second quicker nearly than he went yesterday. As here is Fernando Alonso on medium compound tyres in 10th place currently. And he looks like he's pushing quite hard. See how good this lap will be, as we've only got 31 minutes remaining in final practice. As Alonso into turn 5. Verstappen, I don't know if he's on a new lap, but they've just popped up on screen that he's done the fastest first sector. As Alonso coming through turn 9, Magnussen and Leclerc nearly collided. As Alonso now coming through the final flat-out corners before the 90-degree left-hander. And Alonso a bit, distracted by the AlphaTauri there, as after the first two sectors, he is a second down on Sergio Perez, as Max Verstappen has done a purple middle sector as well. So I think Max is about to go quickest in the Red Bull. We'll see how quick it is. As Alonso brakes hard for the final chicane. And Verstappen goes very quick and goes quickest onto a 1:34.6, half a second quicker than Perez, as Alonso goes 7th on the medium compound tyre. That is a brilliant time from Verstappen. And, well, Ferrari are going to need to go probably a second quicker than they've gone so far, even just on the medium, for them to still be looking good with their speed. But at the minute, it looks like Leclerc and Sainz are doing a long run, so we're not going to see what they're going to do for probably another 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, that is some ominous pace from Red Bull. I'll be honest, I expected the best lap time in this session to be probably at best a late 1 minute 34. I didn't think we'd already be in the mid 134s halfway through the session. So yeah, that is a very, very hot pace from Max. As Logan Sargent is engine asking, "Are you okay?" Logan responding, "Yeah, all good." They just went off track slightly at the final chicane, as here is his teammate Alexander Albon, currently in 6th place and on a better lap. Done an improved middle sector, and this looks like it's going to probably put him up to 5th place ahead of Hulkenberg. Williams looking pretty decent so far this weekend, as Yuki Tsunoda goes up to 11th place. Alex Albon exiting the chicane, and now final run to the line through the banking. Albon goes 3rd. Very good final sector. Yeah, Alexander Albon up to 3rd place, and about a second off Max Verstappen's lap time. And if he can be a second off pole, Albon, in qualifying, then he'll probably end up getting into the top 10. Has to be the aim for Williams. Now looking at Daniel Ricciardo. Some work going on to the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Work going on to the suspension area. Lance Stroll has improved his lap time on the mediums and goes back up to 11th place. As Ricciardo, we can see here, is just warming up for a new flying lap, as there is team principal Franz Tost for the AlphaTauri team on the pit wall. This is Franz's penultimate race in Formula One as a team principal. I think he is still going to be a consultant for the team going forward. But yeah, next week in Abu Dhabi will be his final weekend as a team boss. He began as a team principal in Formula One in, was it 2009? So it'll be almost 15 years. And, you know, I think he's done a pretty good job with that team. Don't think you can really ask much more what he's done. Ricardo has had to back off on this lap, ran quite wide through turn 7. Understeering like mad. But AlphaTauri supposedly are going to have a new name next year, and we were supposed to apparently hear already what the new name was going to be, and we still don't know. So, yeah, who knows what's happening with that? As we're looking at Mercedes of George Russell in the pits. Mercedes have not done that many runs so far, and they're all the way down in 18th and 19th. Well, they could do better than that. We're looking at Kevin Magnussen in his Haas garage. Magnussen currently in 13th, and that's where he ended up at the end of practice 2 yesterday. And his teammate Hulkenberg yesterday was 7th, and Hulkenberg currently in 6th. So very similar session going on here for Haas, as George Russell is about to be released from the Mercedes pits. What tyres is he on? Well, we'll see in a moment. In the replay of Logan Sargent just grazing the wall on the exit of turn 5, and the reason he did it is because the rear end was a bit stable. As Russell going to come out soft tyres, so let's see what pace Mercedes have. Their best lap time of the weekend was a what was it? A 136.3. or a 136.8 yesterday. So yeah, let's see what they can do. As Logan Sargent is back up to 6th place, and it is currently Verstappen, Perez, Albon, Leclerc, Sainz, Sargent, Hulkenberg. Now Yuki Tsunoda up to 8th. And then Alonso 9th, Gasly 10th, and then Ocon, Stroll, Magnussen, Norris, Piastri, Ricciardo, Bottas, Joe, Hamilton, and Russell now 19th and 20th. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if Mercedes could get anywhere close to the 134.6 by Max Verstappen. Drew Blank Music says rename AlphaTauri Andretti. Yeah. I think Andretti will get onto the grid, even though yesterday the press conference, the team principals, they still didn't sound very enthusiastic. I think because Andretti, if they are denied coming onto the grid, I think Andretti then have a very good legal case suing Formula One for anti-competition, basically. Then I think, to not risk that, I think they're going to allow them on the grid, and then probably redo the the amount of money that each team gets. Yeah, I'm pretty confident we'll see Andretti on the grid, whether it's 2025, 2026. I think we'll see them because they are a serious team. They mean business. We know that. People know in motorsport, what Andretti are about. They know about the success they've had, in other series. And I think honestly are pretty likely to be more of a success in Formula One than Haas have been. So, they as Sky F1 currently on an ad break. So yeah. Let me try and read a couple comments out from you guys. Nicholas says, I'm kind of worried about Logan. Is he going to be with Williams next year, or is he going to be replaced by someone else? Williams have already confirmed that Logan Sargent is going to be with them next year, which I think... Did I talk about in Brazil? I think I talked about it either in Brazil or Mexico, but it has already been confirmed that Logan is at Williams. I'm pretty sure it was. I saw Formula One do a tweet about it on their official Twitter. So, yeah, the grid for next season is basically decided because, what do you call it? Sergio Perez, I think, will be at Red Bull still, at least for the start of next season. And Nicholas asking earlier, what's your favourite F1 season from the 2000s and the 2010s? Even though I was not watching in the 2000s, I would say my favourite 2000s F1 season would be either 2008 or 2009. Probably 2009, but 2008 was a really special season as well. But yeah, I'd go 2009 because it was even more unpredictable, and obviously the story of what happened that year with Braun was amazing. And from the 2010s, I would say definitely 2012 was the first full F1 season that I watched, as Sergio Perez, as they come back from the ad break, Sergio Perez has improved his lap time, but is still in second. As Lewis Hamilton is on the back straight now and is on an improved lap, but I have no idea how it is compared to hold on, Yuki Tsunoda has been given the black and white flag for crossing the line at pit entry. That'll be just a reprimand, I think, if he does that again. But let's see what the lap time is as Lewis Hamilton comes to the line. And it is a 1:36.0, which is, it's quite a bit faster than what they did yesterday. But it is very slow compared to Red Bull. 1.4 seconds slower. But George Russell does a much better lap, a 1:35.1, and only goes, 4/10 of a second or half a second basically slower. Yeah, fantastic lap there from Russell up to third place and did a purple final sector as well. And that wasn't because of a toe or anything. They're just showing a slow-mo here of Russell braking into the final chicane and some brake dust coming out of the brakes. And here's a replay of Leclerc understeering at turn 12, the final corner before the long back straight. But yeah, that's a very good lap time from Russell, and that is a tad more, not even a tad, a bit more encouraging for Mercedes, because with Red Bull, with the lap times they've done, if that's as quick as they can go in this session, then things are not looking too bad for Mercedes going into qualifying. But we still have 18 minutes to go. And I'm sure the two Ferraris will be out there pretty soon on a set of soft tyres to go much quicker. Hamilton is on a cool-down lap, or either a lap back into the pits. He's on the back straight. And yeah, surely Lewis Hamilton could do a better lap than what he did. Almost a second slower than his teammate with that lap. As Zhou Guanyu improves up to 7th place for Alfa Romeo. As Oscar Piastri currently in 18th on a new flying lap on soft tyres. This is his first flying lap actually on soft tyres today. Nearly coming into turn 12. See what his middle sector time is like in a moment as he gets through turn 12 very well. And very good timing so far. He's only 4/10 of a second down on Verstappen after the first two sectors. Closer than I would have expected. Now on this back straight. Thankfully, no manhole cover issues so far on that straight. Piastri through the final chicane. And now flat out to the line as Fernando Alonso goes third on the soft compound tyre on a 1:34.9. Good lap time there for Alonso. Piastri goes up to 5th on a 1:35.3. Got to say, the track evolution is very high. As yeah, Piastri in 5th. As we've got Alex Albon now on an outlap. We're now looking at Valtteri Bottas on a new run on the soft compound tyre. Bottas, obviously, yesterday ended up in 5th. Let's see what heroics he can do with this lap. 15 minutes to go in final practice. And middle sector time is almost as good as Piastri. So this is going to put him quite high up as Lewis Hamilton goes up to 6th, but is still 4/10 of a second slower than Russell. So still losing a lot of time for some reason is Hamilton. Bottas through the final chicane. As George Russell now goes quickest on a 1:34.5. Interesting. So Mercedes really introducing themselves now. As Logan Sargent goes up to 5th. Not anymore because Valtteri Bottas now in 5th place. Very good lap and proving there. The Alfa Romeo in the hands of Bottas is strong. But yeah, Russell quickest on a 1:34.585. And that surely is going to get Mercedes excited for now about their prospects for qualifying. But again, Red Bull and Ferrari, I think, still are probably going to go out there and do further quick runs, as we're now looking at Alexander Albon. He's on a flying lap and he's just braking hard now into turn 5. Albon's still in the top 10 in 9th place. His teammate's just gone up to 6th and is nearly half a second quicker than Albon now. Albon through turn 9, passing some slow cars. Alex motors his way down turn 12 and got through that very nicely. What's his middle sector like? Only 0.2 of a second slower than Russell, and we know the Williams very quick. It should be in this final sector. So Albon could go quickest with this lap if he has a really good final sector. Comes into the final chicane now. Nice wide turn in and got through that very well. As Max Verstappen, by the way, is on an out lap. Keep you updated as to what he does. As Albon to the line, goes third and is only 0.1 slower than Russell. The Williams really looking quite strong. Both cars in the top 10 as Fernando Alonso goes up to 4th, only 0.2 of a second away from George Russell. And the top 10, well, maybe not the top 10, but the top 7 looking pretty close. Only half a second separating them. There's a replay of Zhou into turn 1, locking his inside front and going straight on. Then rejoining a bit later on. Yeah, Zhou clearly struggling compared to his teammate. He's over 1.5 seconds slower than Bottas in practice 2 yesterday. And he's quite a bit slower than Valtteri at the moment. In a slow-mo there of the Mercedes. But now we look at Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, who I think is just starting a new flying lap on soft tyres. And here he comes. Verstappen into turn 1. And looks okay through there. Now through turn 3. Yeah, looks good through there as he now opens the DRS down to turn 5. Hit the apex very well there, did Verstappen, in a very strong first sector, 1/4 of a second quicker than the Mercedes of Russell, as Bottas has just done a purple middle sector. And Verstappen getting very close to the wall, the exit of turn 9, as Logan Sargent goes up to 2nd place, just showing you the track evolution and how strong it is. As Kevin Magnussen Max Verstappen gone deep at turn 12, and it was because I just caught a glimpse of it. It was because of a car that I think distracted him and maybe blocked him a bit. So Verstappen has had to back off. Not good. As Oscar Piastri goes quickest for McLaren on a 1:34.4. As the 2 Ferraris, by the way, are out on track on soft compound tyres. So here we go. We're about to find out whether Ferrari's pace is genuine. But, yeah, the top 10 currently: Piastri, Russell, Sargent, Verstappen, Albon, Alonso, Perez, Bottas, Magnussen, Hamilton. We enter the final 10 minutes as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 1 and 2. Lando Norris on a flying lap now. As Sonoda goes up to 14th. Now green flag. Norris through turn 12. Oh, he got quite wide there. I think would have been a tad distracted by the car ahead. And yeah, not a good middle sector. And this is not going to be that good of a lap. And this is probably going to put Norris in, what, 9th place, probably at best. Now just coming in final chicane. A bit more traffic ahead of the Haas. We'll be able to grab a slipstream, though, the Haas ahead, which will help. Give him an extra couple tenths of a second. And Norris, yep, goes 9th quickest as Lance Stroll goes up to 11th. So Norris up to 9th. Stroll in P11. As here is Lewis Hamilton now down to 12th on an improved lap. Needs to at least get on terms with his teammate, who is, well, a second quicker than him. Hamilton is coming down to turn 12 now. And runs a bit wide as Kevin Magnussen goes 9th, and Hamilton 4.5 tenths slower than Piastri after the first two sectors. And once again, not a good lap for Lewis Hamilton. Seemed to be doing okay yesterday compared to his teammate, but today, very slow. Is baffling as Zhou Guan Yu goes up to 13th. Lewis Hamilton exiting the final chicane. And now comes to the line and goes only 7th quickest. Goes about 3/10 of a second, or a quarter of a second, actually slower than his teammate. So he's getting closer, but still should be a bit closer than that. As Hulkenberg improves up to 12th place. Here's a replay of the Williams of Alex Albon going off, I think, to let somebody through. But what we need to be seeing in a moment is the Ferraris to see what they are going to be doing. As George Russell has just done a purple middle sector, and he's now got a great slipstream from a McLaren ahead. He comes to the line. Does he go quickest? Yes, he does by 4/10 of a second. And George Russell quickest on a 1:34.0. Very, very encouraging if you're a Mercedes fan. As Sergio Perez has just improved up to 5th place. So Red Bull 4th and 5th. Max Verstappen, though, as a tyre has just fallen off a Williams car. That's going to be a red flag. And it's the left rear of Alex Albon's car. The tyre, the entire compound has come off. What on earth has happened to cause that? And surely that is going to be a red flag with 6 minutes to go in practice 3 to recover the tyre. Not even a yellow flag at the minute. I'm not even sure they know that a tyre just fell off Alex Albon's car. And yeah, so he's hit the wall on the exit of turn 5, and that's why the tyres come off. Oh, that was quite a hard hit. That might even have damaged the gearbox. Yeah, he says on the radio, box damage, rear left puncture, and then yeah, the full tyre came off. And he's now touring back to the pits with only 3 wheels on his wagon. A bad way to end the session as Alex Albon now parks, I think, down an escape road. Actually, no, it's not down an escape road. It's right next to the track. Why are they not throwing the red flag out? I can't understand why. There you go. Now we have a red flag. Of course, because it's a practice session, the timer will keep running, and that is the end pretty much of practice 3, because by the time they get everything removed, this session will be over. Bad way for Alex to, and yeah, they just confirmed the session will not be resumed. Bad way for Alex to end the session, given that he was looking so good for so long. Williams, they do look pretty quick, so they need to, not let what's happened here get them down too much, because the pace they have is pretty decent. But the session, guys, is now over. I'll just let the timer keep running. Let's go through your final finishing order of final practice before qualifying. George Russell quickest on a 1:34.0. Are Mercedes legitimate contenders for pole position? We will find out in about more than that, about 3 hours from now. Oscar Piastri second. Logan Sargent up in third. What an incredible practice he has had. Great to see him having some good pace. Max Verstappen fourth. Perez fifth. Red Bull can go quicker, but who knows how quick they can truly go. Alex Albon sixth. Alonso seventh. Hamilton eighth. Bottas ninth. Magnussen 10th. Bottas, by the way, still looking good. They still look solid, and if not, pretty good. Lando Norris in 11th, and then Hulkenberg 12th. Ocon 13th, Stroll 14th, Joe 15th, Leclerc 16th, Sainz 17th. The two Ferraris have ended the session in those positions because they did their lap times on the medium compound tyres. So who knows how quick they could have gone in this session. And they are really, Ferrari, I would say, the biggest question going into qualifying as to can they keep up the pace they showed yesterday. We'll find out. Yuki Tsunoda then in 18th, Pierre Gasly 19th, and Daniel Ricciardo 20th. AlphaTauri still proving to be the slowest team this weekend, and Alpine and AlphaTauri still, proving to be the two slowest teams. But I'll let the timer keep running. And what I'm going to do now, guys, is I am going to get the gaps displayed up on screen so you guys can visually see just what the lap times and the gaps through the field look like. Yeah, that is final practice over. And thankfully, we got through it with no track issues. But yeah. Let me just do this now. So, George Russell, quickest on a 1:34.0. A second and a half quicker, that is, that lap time, than the best time in practice 2. So, very high track evolution. And then you got Oscar Piastri in second, 0.4 of a second down. McLaren, who knows how quick they really are. Depends really on how quick Red Bull and Ferrari are as to what McLaren's pace looks like. But it looks better than Aston Martin. And they do look better, but I'm just not sure how good they look. And then you got Sargent in third. Very good session for him. That's got to be the best session, really, he's had all season, even though it's only a practice session. And you've got Max Verstappen in fourth, and he was a quarter of a second up Verstappen on Russell before he went off the track. He was, though, a quarter of a second up on a previous best time that Russell had done. So who knows whether Verstappen would have gone quickest, but it leaves us with intrigue going into qualifying. Because maybe we've got a 3-team fight for pole position. Then Perez 5th, Albon in 6th. And then Alonso 7th. Aston Martin not looking as competitive, unfortunately, as they did yesterday. I mean, their pace is not awful, but they don't look as good as they were, coming out of practice 2 yesterday. Lewis Hamilton still struggling in 8th place. 3/4 of a second slower than his teammate. There's got to be something with the setup that they can do to help Lewis close that gap, because that is way, way too big. And then you got Bottas in 9th, still looking good, and Kevin Magnussen ahead of his teammate for a change, and in the top 10. Are still decent contenders for a top 10 today in qualifying, but I still don't think they've got quite the car to do it. And then just outside the top 10, you've got Lando Norris. Norris, though, we saw he had a bit of a, not a great lap, so we know he can go quicker. And then you've got Hulkenberg in 12th with Ocon. Actually, no, it wasn't Ocon in 13th. It was Lance Stroll in 13th position. Apologies for that. Lance Stroll. Yeah. Almost half a second slower than his teammate. So still poor pace from Lance, which we have seen so many times this season, especially over a single lap. And then Ocon in 14th. Alpine look like they're a write-off really for the weekend. They just haven't got any pace. Joe Guan Yu in 15th also looks abysmal. Nearly a second slower than his teammate in practice 3. And then the curious case of the two Ferraris. Who knows what their legitimate pace is? I hope it is good enough to at least properly contend pole position. But yeah, if you're a Ferrari fan, I would not panic, because I'm sure they could have gone a lot quicker. And then you've got Tsunoda in 18th, and yeah, AlphaTauri look really slow. If Williams can have a strong weekend, and that's pretty much going to cost AlphaTauri an opportunity of taking 7th in the championship. This is the ultimate race weekend of 2023. And Daniel Ricciardo, very slow at the back of the field. Not quite sure why that is. We've had some sort of issue, but hold on. Put the drivers back position. Put the lap times alongside there just for a second, just so you can see the gaps through the field. And yeah, 1 second covering the top 12, which is closer than it was yesterday after practice 2, where I think between the top 10 it was like 1.2 seconds. So yeah, looking exciting going into qualifying. And again, we could have a 2 or even 3 team fight for pole position. We'll have to find out in a couple hours time. But I'll just leave that up on screen, because what I need to do now is change the title of the stream. Of course, practice 3 is over and done with. And I'm also just going to post a link to the stream out on my community tab once again. Let me just quickly do that, guys. Get into the beginnings of the qualifying build-up. Come join us here. Build-up to first qualifying session. Vegas. And there you go. So, make sure, for the next, we've got 2.5 hours until, as I'll just get rid of that now. Yeah, we've got 2.5 hours until qualifying begins. As I'll just redo the text here and get the timer. Well, actually, I won't quite get the timer on screen yet, because I'm going to be going to something in a second. But yeah, we've got, what, 2 hours and 25 minutes until qualifying. So please, in the chat, guys, for the next couple hours, let me know your thoughts going into qualifying as to what's going to happen with the fight pole position. How do the teams look? How do the drivers look, in your opinion? Let me know in the chat. And of course, there is a poll running at the top of the live chat. Make sure to vote in that poll if you haven't already, as to who you think out of the 4 drivers I've selected, Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, and Alonso, who do you think out of those 4 will take pole position in Vegas? That poll will keep running for the next 3 hours up until the start of Q3. Quickly as well, just a reminder of my next couple pieces of content. I will be back live tomorrow morning, of course, for the main event of the weekend, the race watch along. I'll be live 2 hours before the race starts at 4 a.m. UK time. For obviously the build up and then the race watch along. Nib will be joining me for the race. I don't think he's going to be joining me for the stream today, but he definitely will be on the race tomorrow morning. And then, of course, after that, the next stream is on Thursday, the final weekend preview of 2023 for the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, and that'll be live on Thursday night at 8 p.m. UK time. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you do it right there. And for everybody watching, make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already. We're on 44 likes. Let's try and get over 50 likes if we can. Miss Marquise asking, how come they banned your Twitter? I don't know why. It has to be a mistake. I don't know why. But to be honest, I'm not as bothered about it as I was initially, because in terms of the impressions I would get on Twitter with my tweets, they weren't that many. So I don't think it's going to make a massive difference to the viewership of my videos and streams, to be honest. So yeah, a shame, but yeah. But you know, I at least I still have this channel to let you guys know what I'm up to and doing my thing. But what I am now going to be doing, guys, is playing a video to serve as a break for me to, you know, have some water, have some food, probably, you know, to re-energize ahead of the next few hours. But also, I want to get into, or I want to, you know, for people that missed my qualifying preview, I want, you know, to people to find out my thoughts on, you know, all that happened yesterday, and also to see, you know, what happened in practice 2 yesterday. So this break video I'm going to play, it is a section from my qualifying preview stream that I did a few hours ago. And it is this clip about 35 minutes long. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly play it to see if the sound is working okay. And if it is, guys, if the sound is working okay, please put yes in the chat. And once you do that, then I'll play it, and then I'll be back once it ends. So let me just quickly play it. But let's now get into this qualifying preview, and let's start. So yeah, please let me know whether, as I'll just go back to this, please let me know whether that clip, you know, was the sound working all okay? Let me know. And if it is, then I'll leave you with that for the next half an hour whilst I have a bit of a break. Then once we finish that clip, I will get into the teams again and have a final whiz through the teams and just get into how they all look going into qualifying after what we've seen in practice 3. And then after that, with however long we've got remaining, we'll be getting into all of your comments in the chat building up to qualifying. Frank Triggs saying yes. So many profiles asking when does qualifying start. Qualifying starts in 2 hours and 20 minutes time. And yeah, a couple people there saying yes. So yeah, I'll leave you with this clip from my qualifying preview stream. And yeah, make sure whilst this is playing, if you haven't seen it yet, to let me know your thoughts on all the chaos, controversy, the farce of what happened yesterday. And keep letting me know as well in the chat your thoughts going into qualifying as to what you think is going to happen, who's going to end up on pole position, and your thoughts on all of the key battles ahead of qualifying. But yeah, I'll leave with this video, and then I'll be back on the other side of it. But let's now get into this qualifying preview, and let's start with what happened with the manhole cover and all of that. So, as I'm sure a lot of you know, Carlos Sainz in practice 1, about 9 minutes in, he tore his floor to bits because the manhole cover down the, I guess the back straight you could call it, came loose. And yeah, it completely destroyed the Ferrari car to the point where they thought they wouldn't be able to get out for practice 2. But because it was so delayed, second practice, they were able to get back out there, which is good. Carlos Sainz, though, because he's took on so many new parts, will have to take a 10-place grid penalty, which is complete bullshit, but the rules are the rules. But yeah, it's just, it's such a disgrace, really, because it was through no fault of, Ferrari. It was down to the track and, it not being safe at the end of the day, with, the cover coming loose, and also them finding other manhole covers around the track that were not adequate, let's say. And the solution, which is really a temporary solution, they decided to pour cement over the cover, which, yeah, is a temporary solution. And it really screamed desperation to me, that solution. And clearly, the people running the event, Liberty Media especially, would have been panicking at that point, about what to do and how to, at least conduct the rest of the what was in Vegas Thursday practice. But yeah, we'll see if that solution, whether it can prevent any more incidents like that happening again for the rest of the weekend. But yeah, just a complete disaster, really. And you have to remember, with a car hitting, a cover like that at such speed like Carlos Sainz did, it is very dangerous. I know some people have been downplaying it, but it is a very dangerous thing. So, and I think there were reports, I'm not sure if this was confirmed or not, but they could even reportedly see the a hole completely through the cockpit of the Ferrari, which, again, I don't know if that is 100% true, but the floor, there was pictures after the session of the floor being torn to bits, and it was quite incredible, the damage that was done to the floor itself. So that happened, and then practice 1, as we know, was cancelled. And then practice 2, eventually, we had an announcement that it was delayed, and eventually was delayed until 2:30 in the morning, and it didn't finish until, what was it, 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I didn't watch the session because it was just too late for me, and I'd been up for too long, so I decided to, thankfully, give it a miss. But yeah, thankfully, nothing in practice 2 happened, but there were some other things that happened yesterday that were just not good. And let's get into one of them now. And it is a quote from Toto Wolff, because there was a press conference in between practice 1 and practice 2 that normally, does it normally take place on the first day of running? I'm not sure if it's the first day or the second day, but it was basically a team principals press conference, and you had Toto Wolff, Frederick Vasseur, James Vowles, someone else, I can't remember exactly who else was in this press conference, and they were asking Toto about, how bad this was, and whether it's, black eye, basically, for Formula One. And let's get into what he had to say, because it caused quite a stir online. So this is what he had to say, quote, "It's FP1. How can you even dare trying to talk about an event that sets new standards to everything? You're speaking about a fucking drain cover that's been undone. That has happened before. That's nothing. It's FP1. Give credit to the people that have set up this Grand Prix, that have made this sport much bigger than it ever was. I will give my thoughts in a moment, don't worry, as to what he's had to say here. He goes on, quote, Liberty has done an awesome job, and just because an FP1 a drain cover has become undone, we shouldn't be moaning. The car is broken. That's really a shame for Carlos. It could have been dangerous. So between the FIA and the track and everybody needs to analyze how we can make sure that this is not happening again. But talking here about the black eye for the sport on a Thursday evening, nobody watches that in European time anyway. And quite rightly, this caused a stir online because what he's had to say here is just complete rubbish. And it's very arrogant, very dismissive, selfish as well in terms of the point of view that he shares here. But let's just go through all of it. So he starts off by saying, is FP1, how can you even dare try to talk bad about an event that sets new standards for everything? First off, people can talk bad about whatever they want. That's what freedom of speech is. And they are in America. So, you know, they should know that if anyone has the right to criticize the event if if something bad happens. And I know he's not thinking that, you know, people shouldn't be allowed to share their opinion. I know he's not, you know, in that mindset, but if he disagrees with people talking bad about the event, fine. But people are allowed to, and they have every right to, given what happened yesterday in Vegas. But when he says talk bad about an event that sets new standards for everything, what new standards are those? Is it a new standard of just how fitly run a new event, you know, it is at this current time in Formula One? Is it setting a new standard for being way too overpriced? What's the new standard? I would love to know what the new standard is, because from what I've seen so far, I don't see this event as setting a new standard, obviously in a positive way, for Formula One. I haven't seen anything so far. With the opening ceremony and the driver introductions, we've had that before at other races in America, so it's not like that's a new thing, and it wasn't really that much better than what we've seen previously. And then, yeah, with what's happened with the event so far, plus the fan situation, which we'll get into in a moment. Again, what is this event setting standards-wise? What is it doing? I can't see it. Just complete bullshit from Toto there. And then he goes on to say, you're speaking about a fucking drain cover that's been undone. That has happened before. That's true. It has happened before. In Baku, back in 2019, I think it was, with George Russell. He ran over drain cover in practice one, did a lot of damage to his car. The session got cancelled, and then the truck that took Russell's car back to the pits then crashed into a bridge, I think it was. It was quite a hilarious weekend, I have to say, except for Russell hitting the drain cover, which could have been, you know, a lot worse than it was. But and then, yeah, we've had it a couple times in Monaco. Jenson Button, for example, a few years ago, like I think it was about seven or 8 years ago now, hit a drain cover. There was also what was it? I think Rubens Barrichello and a Williams had a crash because of a loose drain cover. So yeah, it has happened before at, you know, Monaco and Baku. One key difference, though, those Grand Prix, you know, those things happened. They repaired it. Lessons at the time were learned. This is a new event. You would think when the FIA race director is inspecting the track to make sure it's safe, which, by the way, that's a completely different story to get into in terms of the track inspection that was a bit of a farce. Maybe I'll get into that at a later point. You'd think one of the main things at a street circuit you'd be looking at is, are the drain covers securely, on? Are they're not going to present a danger to the cars, to the fans, to marshals, and they're not going to, they're going to be able to withstand cars running over them. That is, you would think, one of the main things you would be looking for as as someone from the FIA inspecting the circuit. But clearly, this either it did happen, but they didn't properly investigate this, or they didn't, do it properly. But just because it's happened before does not mean that it makes this not as bad. Because again, this is a new event. They know that this can be an issue with drain covers at street circuits. So with that knowledge and with the lessons they should have learned from those other events where this has happened, they should be making sure that this is absolutely not going to happen here. So yeah, just a poor excuse as far as I'm concerned. And then he says, that's nothing, it's FP1, doesn't matter, it's dangerous no matter what. And then he says, give credit to the people that have set up this Grand Prix, that have made this sport much bigger than it ever was. Well, firstly, yeah, the people that have set this Grand Prix up haven't done the greatest job so far. Plus, the local support for the race is not exactly over the top. If anything, most people in the Vegas area don't want F1 to be racing there. And they now have F1 disrupting basically their weekend. So even though, yeah, give credit to the people setting up a Grand Prix, it's not like this Grand Prix really should be happening, because it doesn't have the support really of the local population like much other Grand Prix do. And then he goes on to say that, give credit to the people that have made this sport much bigger than it ever was. That is true. Liberty Media have made Formula One bigger than it ever was. They've increased the valuation of the sport by, I can't remember how much it is, but they have increased the valuation of Formula One by quite a lot. And the valuation, therefore, of the teams has gone up quite a lot. And that's why Toto, by the way, is defending Liberty Media as much as he is here, and the organisers of the Grand Prix, because his personal wealth has been helped by Liberty Media. So, of course, he's going to be defending them because he's thinking about his bank account. That's all. He does not give a flying fuck about anybody else but himself. And yeah, Liberty Media, they've made the sport bigger, but that is, that is true up until, really, the end of 2021. Because since the end of 2021, viewing figures and social media impressions are all down on Formula One. I think there was a stat that was posted, was it a couple months ago, that social media impressions this year for Formula One compared to 2021 is down 86%, I think it was, or something like that, which is a massive amount. And again, viewing figures in a lot of markets, if not all markets, are down. So yeah, they've made the sport bigger, but at the moment, going backwards with less interest year upon year in Formula One. So at the minute, I wouldn't say they're doing that great of a job. Yeah, they've done a great job, between, say, 2017 and 2021. But in the last couple of years, I wouldn't say necessarily they've done that good of a job. So yeah. And we'll go on to the second part here, where he says, Liberty has done an awesome job, and just because an FP1 drain cover has become undone, we shouldn't be moaning. Again, people have every right to moan if they want to. The car is broken. That's really a shame for Carlos. This is another thing I want to get into. He says, for Carlos, it could have been dangerous. But then if you go back to earlier in the quote, he's completely downplaying this incident by saying, oh, you're speaking about a fucking drain cover that's been undone. That's happened before. That's nothing. It's FP1. But then goes on to say, for Carlos, it could have been dangerous. Well, what is it? Is it nothing? Is it just a nothing burger, as people say? Or is it something serious? Because if it's something that could have been dangerous, and it absolutely was dangerous, then it's more than nothing, isn't it? And that right there, that hypocrisy just clearly shows what or where these words are coming from Toto, where again it purely is in damage control mode here, where he is trying to defend his, like, basically in Liberty Media, business partners so much because again they've increased his own personal wealth and the wealth of the team that he has a share in. And he is desperately trying to defend them because he does not want to see the valuation of Formula One, for whatever reason, go down. And that's why he's saying the things he is here, because he is, he's clutching at straws, really. So then he goes on to say, so between the FIA and the track, everyone needs to analyse how we can make sure this doesn't happen again. True. And then I have to touch on this bit at the end where he says, but talking here about the black eye for the sport on a Thursday evening, nobody watches that in European time anyway. Again, a very arrogant statement. And just because people are not watching in European time does not mean it is still bad. In America, people were watching. It was, it was a good hour for people on the East Coast, the West Coast, obviously, and, people who have, what's it, Central Standard Time in the US. And obviously, Liberty Media have been trying to advertise Formula One to America so much in the last few years. So, of course, it is a black eye for the sport. Not a gigantic one. There's been bigger ones in the past. But even if nobody was watching in Europe, even though some of us was, it's still bad. And with the arrogance of the statement where he says nobody watches that in European time anyway, it just shows how dismissive that Toto, and I think a lot of the people who are the higher ups in the sport are, of the European audience. They are, basically shaking their ass for the American audience so much, and that's what they've been doing in the last few years. And they are so desperate to make it big in America because they know if they do, they will grow Formula One to an unbelievable point in terms of the size, the valuation, all of that. And that right there is a clear indication that the people running Formula One, the team owners, I wouldn't say it's that they don't care at all about Europeans, but they don't really care that much about the European audience, or really any audience other than the United States of America. And that is one of the biggest negative things about Formula One right now, is the ponying, as much as they are for that American audience, has got to the point where it is actively making Formula One worse in certain instances. Formula One is not, completely terrible, because of course, why would I watch it? But it, the ponying to that American audience, it definitely has made certain areas of the sport worse than it was when Bernie was running Formula One. So yeah, Toto here just horrendous what he had to say, and he has been just criticised left, right, and centre for what he said, and rightfully so, because what he said was a complete disgrace, really. But one other thing I want to touch on is, not only did we have that happen with the Drenko in practice 1, and then, practice 2 delayed and it didn't happen until the middle of the night, but half an hour, was it half an hour or 10 minutes before? I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was not too long before practice 2 started. The organisers of the Las Vegas Grand Prix announced that the fan areas, the fan zones, whatever you want to call it, would be closed due to logistical considerations. What that means, logistical considerations, is because they had to open the track back up at 4 a.m. local time, which is about when the session ended, practice 2, they didn't want everybody rushing out of the track at the same time. I think that's what they meant. And also, because of how late it was at night, and it was the middle of the night, I think also there was a lack of staff around, which was a problem. Now, I think actually the decision to, to close the fan areas, I don't think it was necessarily a bad decision. I just don't see what the organisers could have done at that point. Their hands were tied because of practice 1 being cancelled, plus practice 2 being delayed by, what was it, 2.5 hours. So they couldn't really do that much about that whole situation. But of course, for the fans, it absolutely sucks because some of those fans have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to attend the event, and those tens of thousands say is, not just the tickets, but you're looking at, hotel, food, whatever else. And on the first day of running, they got 9 minutes that they got to see. That was it. And then they had how long of a delay was it? I think what was it, 5.5 hour delay until the start of practice 2, when eventually they were told basically to fuck off. Why, if you attended what happened yesterday at the track and you were a casual or even a new viewer to Formula One, and especially you were a new viewer to Formula One and you lived locally, why on earth would you ever want to attend a Formula One race again? I mean, think about it. If you attended, let's say I attended the British Grand Prix at Silverstone and I was like just getting into Formula One, or was a new viewer. If this happened to me where I've spent thousands and got nothing basically for the first day and then was told to go away and get out before the second practice session for something that was totally not my fault, why would I ever want to attend again? I'd be mad. I would feel like I've been completely ripped off. And by the way, Formula One hasn't apologised to the fans at the track for what's happened, and there has been no talk of a refund. So this has been a complete PR disaster. I'm not surprised about the no refund part, because that's just the way Liberty Media are. They take your money, and then whatever you get is whatever you get. I mean, we saw at Spa in 2021. I don't think those fans got a refund for not seeing a race happen on that very wet Sunday. So it's not a surprise that that happened. This is just the way Liberty Media are. And yeah, it is a black eye for the sport, because even though, yes, it was only practice, people, who attended the event not only wasted their time, wasted a lot of money attending a day of running where, well, there wasn't really a day of running to actually witness. So yeah, it was not a complete disaster, because at least we still got practice 2 in. If practice 2 had not happened, it would have been a complete 100% disaster. But yeah, it was just a complete mess. And I hope the rest of the weekend goes smoothly, because if it doesn't, if another drain cover comes loose, or I don't know, something falls apart of the track, then the Las Vegas Grand Prix will be remembered for being, or at least the first version of the Las Vegas Grand Prix will be remembered for being the worst new event in Formula One history. And that is not what they want. And remember, of course, Las Vegas have got a 10-year deal. So they better hope that this doesn't happen in qualifying and on, the race on Sunday. Because if it does, then why have a race here ever again? And I know I might be jumping a bit too far forward there, but I just want to, share my thoughts on that. But yeah, that's what happened. Fingers crossed it won't happen again this weekend, and lessons can be learned, even though they won't, because money comes first. That's how life is, and that's especially how the United States of America is. Money comes first ahead of anything else, and that's why, this all happened at the end of the day, and that's, sad to see, but I think with what happened overall and the reaction to it, I'm not necessarily massively surprised by what's happened. But yeah, just let's hope that we don't have any more trouble, because if we do, it's going to get pretty toxic. But let's now get into what actually happened in second practice. It was a 90-minute long session. And yeah, let's get into what happened there. So we'll start with the results. Ferrari ending up with a 1-2. Charles Leclerc quickest by half a second ahead of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, though, has to take a 10th-place grid penalty for something that was of no fault of the Ferrari team. Well done, F1. Fernando Alonso up in third. Aston Martin looking very competitive, and clearly the removal of the upgrades in Brazil, which resulted in a much stronger pace, is also working here, at least so far, because nobody expected them to be that competitive straight away. Sergio Perez up in fourth, Bottas fifth, Max Verstappen in sixth. Red Bull will be quicker in qualifying, no doubt about it, but they don't seem to be as quick this weekend as I expected. So, bit of a chance here for Ferrari. Nico Hülkenberg then 7th in the Haas, Stroll 8th in the Aston Martin, Hamilton 9th in the Mercedes, and Alex Albon rounding out the top 10. And then for the rest of the order, you've got Norris, Russell, Magnussen, Piastri, then the two Alpines of Gasly and Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Zhou Guanyu, Daniel Ricciardo, and Logan Sargent. I am surprised about the McLaren's lack of pace, and looking at the sector times, as we will in a moment, I don't think it's because they were, sandbagging necessarily. I just don't think they have found maybe best setup so far, but they definitely don't have the pace, anywhere near the pace of Ferrari and Red Bull, and, well, so far, even Aston Martin. But let's get into the sector time data just to understand, in terms of why the results ended up the way they did, why certain teams ended up, say, in high positions, and why certain teams were a bit slower than expected, like McLaren, for example. So the first sector, which is relatively simple, first couple corners got a decent flow to it, and then you got a DRS zone, and then 90-degree right-hander, and then that is the first sector. And the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, the fastest, which is quite a surprise. I did not think that that would be possible. He was only half a tenth ahead of the Ferrari of Leclerc, but still very impressive speed for the Aston Martin in the first sector. The Red Bull in the first sector, a tenth and a half slower than the Ferrari. I think Red Bull definitely could go quicker in this sector, but I don't think they'd be going, necessarily quickest through here in qualifying. So I don't think there's, a massive amount of speed remaining to show in this part of the track. But then you can see a big drop-off to McLaren, fourth quickest, but nearly half a second slower in Sector 1 compared to Fernando Alonso. Clearly, some sort of issue through that first sector. Again, I don't know if it's a setup-related issue, but the McLaren, way too slow, and they should be really right on the pace of the Aston Martin through this sector. The Haas looking pretty good in Sector 1. The Mercedes also should be a lot stronger in the first sector. I do feel, though, with Mercedes that they are probably holding back with their pace more than, say, McLaren were. And then you've got Alfa Romeo, Williams, big drop-off from Alfa Romeo to Williams, by the way. I am surprised Williams are so slow in Sector 1. Alpine as well, a bit surprised they're so slow. And AlphaTauri, the slowest, and look like the slowest team as well this weekend, which is not good in their fight for 7th in the championship. And then the middle sector, you have a bit of a longish on throttle section towards the end of the middle sector, but before that you have some slow corners. And in that middle sector, Ferrari were almost half a second quicker than the next best car. I don't know what it is about the middle sector, but the Ferrari clearly likes it. And in the middle sector overall, for all 20 drivers, Ferrari did have a 1-2 in the middle sector. So yeah, clearly the Ferrari very strong through that sector. And the Haas as well, pretty strong through the middle sector. Red Bull, I think, definitely can show more pace in this sector, but I don't think it's going to be to the point where they're lapping at the same speed. So Ferrari looking very competitive here. And then you've got Aston Martin, decently competitive, Alfa Romeo, Williams, Alpine, Mercedes, almost a second slower than Ferrari in the middle sector, which is unacceptable. They need to be way, way, way closer than that. At least half a second, if not, 3/4 of a second closer to Ferrari. They cannot afford to be that far behind in just this sector alone. Only half a minute a sector. That's, incredible. AlphaTauri, once again, pretty slow. And McLaren, pretty slow as well. And the same goes for McLaren. They need to show a lot more pace because surely there has to be more pace in that car. So Mercedes and McLaren definitely have work to do in this middle sector, and overall have work to do on what they showed yesterday. And then with the final sector, which is flat out except for a chicane in the middle of two long straights, Aston Martin once again in the highest speed sector, the quickest, and clearly have got the setup absolutely bang on with their car, which is why they've looked so competitive so far. Alfa Romeo as well, looking competitive, which is good to see. Mercedes a lot more competitive. Still think they should be probably a tenth and a half quicker, because normally they do tend to be faster than Aston Martin down the straights. Williams as well, I think, should be quicker as well. Perez in the Red Bull, same lap time or time through the final sector. I think this does indicate, though, with Red Bull that they are holding back compared to some of the teams in terms of the amount of power they were using in practice too. But if you look at where Ferrari are in this final sector, Ferrari, just over a tenth of a second slower and down as the 8th quickest team in this final sector. So it's not like Ferrari are at the top of the final sector times and are way quicker than Red Bull. And we know Red Bull, obviously, and Ferrari do tend to have similar straight line speed. So in terms of comparing Ferrari to Red Bull, I think legitimately around this track so far, Ferrari are, in qualifying trim, the quickest team by a decent margin as well. The Ferrari have definitely got, in my view, the upper hand on the Red Bull team. Haas, surprisingly, low down. McLaren also a bit better in this final sector. And I think this final sector does show that I don't think McLaren are really, sandbagging, because I think if they were, then their pace would be quite a bit worse than it is. And then AlphaTauri, very slow in the final sector. Surely there is more pace in that car. And I think they'll have a bit of a better qualifying than they showed in practice too. But I don't think they've got a car to get in the top 10, unfortunately, like I was predicting coming into the weekend. But let's now get into what my final predictions for qualifying are. Based on really the data from what we've seen so far and my expectation that teams, if we go back to the top 10 from practice too, that teams like Mercedes, Red Bull, and McLaren will show more pace than they did in second practice. Here is my prediction. I am going for a Ferrari 1-2, even though they won't be able to lock out the front row for the race because Carlos Sainz will have a 10-place grid penalty. But I think Charles Leclerc will take pole position, and I'm going with a 0.3 of a second gap to Carlos Sainz, with Max Verstappen just behind Sainz in third. Wouldn't be surprised though if Max was in second, but I do think Leclerc is the clear favourite for pole, given how quick the Ferrari looked in practice too. Sergio Perez will be close behind in fourth. Fernando Alonso, I'm going in fifth. I think the Aston Martin pace with Alonso is genuine. Then I'm going for a surprise in sixth place, Valtteri Bottas. I know that is a bit of a wild prediction, having him up on the third row of the grid, but I do think his pace is legitimate, and I think Alfa Romeo have, at least with him, a legitimate good pace. So yeah, that's why I've gone Bottas up in sixth, just ahead of his ex-teammate at Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, and then eighth, Lando Norris in the McLaren, ninth, George Russell, and 10th, Oscar Piastri. And yeah, Mercedes and McLaren, I would say, are more so, not necessarily midfield teams this weekend, but in quali trim, they're definitely a lot closer to the midfield than they are to the very front of the field. So that's my top 10 prediction. We'll see in qualifying whether this can come true. So there you go, guys. That is what I had to say in my qualifying preview stream, the main part of it. If you want to go check that stream out in more detail, there is a link below in the description. Let me just get the countdown on the screen quickly. As we have got an hour and 45 minutes to go until qualifying begins in Las Vegas. So let me know your thoughts on everything I had to get into there. And what we're now going to get into is, now that obviously since I did that qualifying preview stream, we've had another practice session. We're now going to get into how all the teams finally look after all the practice is now done, how they finally look going into qualifying. So we'll get into that for, say, 30 to 45 minutes. And then for the final, say, hour or so before qualifying, we'll then get into all of your comments in the chat. So again, post your thoughts in the chat as to what you thought of what I had to say just there and what you think is going to happen in qualifying. And I will try to get to as many good comments as I can before we get underway for the first ever qualifying session in Vegas. And hopefully the next hour and 45 minutes goes by pretty quickly, because I am pretty knackered, considering I've already been live for 2 hours. Plus I was live for an hour and a half earlier. Plus as well, the last couple of days I've not really had as much sleep as really I ideally need to be at, proper full capacity. So yeah. So let's get into these teams and let's have a look at how they look going into this session. We'll start with Red Bull Racing, and it's difficult to say after practice 3 whether they do look better than what they look like in practice 2, because in the end they were 4th and 5th, and they were half a second away from the Mercedes of George Russell. I think it was even more lap time than that even. So yeah, very difficult to say right now where Red Bull are at. I think Red Bull, Max Verstappen, we saw he was on a better lap towards the end of practice 3, then he had to bail out because he went deep at turn 12. Who knows what type of lap he would have done. I think Max probably would have gone quickest, but we were, never will know whether that would have happened. So yeah, in terms of knowing what Red Bull's true pace is, it's a bit up in the air. I still am sticking with my prediction that, as you can see a few moments ago, that I put on screen. I think they will be the second fastest team and be definitely second best in the fight for pole position up against the Ferrari team, who I am still going with in terms of the team and obviously the driver for pole position. So yeah, Red Bull pace is not terrible, it's not bad, but it's difficult to say right now that they've definitely got the pace to be on pole position today. It's difficult to say that with confidence, because yeah, even though they've had such a dominant season, so far this weekend they've not shown that much that pace is, definitely there. Plus, we have to remember, guys, in the last few races, Red Bull have not been that great at taking pole position. If you look actually since the summer break, we've had Monza, Singapore, Kota, Mexico as well, where they didn't start on pole position, which I know there was other races in there, Zandvoort, Suzuka, Qatar, Brazil, where they were on pole. But given how dominant they've been this season, you would have expected them to be on pole at, a bit more in the second half of this season. So yeah, I think them being on pole today is going to be pretty difficult for them to get. But it is definitely possible still. They've got the best driver in the world, and we know that, most of the time they do have the best car. And you never know, maybe they will have the best car when we get to Q3. But from what I've seen so far, I don't think they quite have the best car in quali trim. Looking at the race pace from practice 2, their pace looks great, but Over a single lap, I don't think it's quite there, but we'll see ultimately in qualifying. But I'm going to stick with my prediction of third and fourth in qualifying, which would then turn into second and third with Carlos Sainz's penalty. Remember, Carlos Sainz for Ferrari has a 10-place grid penalty. All of the changes they had to make to his car after the damage that was done by hitting the manhole cover. Now let's go on to the curious case of Mercedes-Benz. Yesterday they looked pretty slow, and coming into the weekend I thought they would be pretty slow, but then suddenly in practice 3, this man on screen, George Russell, started pumping in some brilliant lap times and ended up not only quickest, but quickest by 0.4 of a second over the next car of Oscar Piastri. I don't understand why Mercedes all of a sudden started showing that type of pace. Again, if Ferrari, get on soft compound tyres and Red Bull can get in their proper laps, maybe in the end Mercedes are still, too slow in terms of being able to fight for pole position. But surely going into qualifying, at least on Russell's side of the garage, they've got to be a bit excited going into qualifying, because that was a very strong practice 3 session, and I would be, if I was Russell, very confident going into this session. We'll see what he can do, but I'm not really sure that Mercedes do have the ability to carry that pace through into qualifying and legitimately get pole position. I really hope they can fight for pole position, because it would be great to have a 3-team fight for pole. Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes. That'd be brilliant. But realistically, I still think Mercedes will be a bit too slow. And I still think ultimately the fight for pole position is between Ferrari and Red Bull. But maybe they'll cause a surprise. Maybe they will be right up there and in the fight for pole. We will have to see. But it's difficult to say right now, given, that Ferrari didn't do a proper soft tyre run and Max made that mistake towards the end. Again, it's difficult to say whether that pace from Mercedes is genuinely really, really good and puts them right in the fight for pole. As for Lewis Hamilton, he had a very difficult session, practice 3. He was miles off his teammate, consistently miles off. He ended up 0.75 of a second slower than his teammate George Russell. Clearly something wrong there, and probably I'd be guessing with this, but I think it's probably a correct guess that there is something wrong with the setup of the car, and that's why he ended up so low down. And we did see on board the car did not look as smooth in his hands as it did in his teammates' hands. Looked like there was quite a bit of understeer in the car. So, if they can add a bit more front downforce there, then maybe he can be a few tenths of a second closer. But going into qualifying, even though I, have predicted, Mercedes to be, 7th and 9th, and Hamilton, I, went with ahead of Russell. Going into qualifying, I think I'd probably swap that in terms of which driver is going to be in what position. I'd probably say Russell is more likely to be, say, in a 7th position and Lewis Hamilton down in 9th, because Hamilton was so slow in that session. And yeah, surely it has to be some sort of setup issue. And I would be surprised if Mercedes in the next hour and a half can find a solution on the setup that will allow Hamilton to suddenly start going, 0.75 of a second quicker than he was in third practice. So yeah, Hamilton for sure on the back foot, but Russell looking very, very good. And Mercedes are in better looking shape going into qualifying than I expected. But as to where they truly are, again, it is difficult to say. But I really do hope that they are in the fight for pole position, because that would be great, of 3 different teams fighting for pole, or even maybe a 4th team in there fighting for pole like McLaren. We'll have to see ultimately. We're talking off Ferrari. Let's now go on to them. And yeah, they didn't get a chance to show their real pace in practice 3. Initially, they were very quick on the medium compound tyres. And then, as the session went on, everybody then started going a lot quicker than them on the softs. They did come out on soft tyres towards the end, but because of that red flag caused by Alex Albon, they didn't get to show their real pace. So who knows whether they are legitimately the quickest team. I still think they will be, because I think this track suits their car really, really well, especially in the second half of the lap with how high speed it is from the exit basically of turn 9 all the way until the start finish line. It is very high speed. So yeah, I'm still sticking with my prediction. I think they will get pole position, and I think they'll be on pole by a decent margin of, say, 2 to 3 tenths of a second. I think they've definitely got enough pace to do that. So yeah, Ferrari are still the favourites for me. Leclerc definitely, I think, likely to end up ahead of Carlos Sainz, as he has been for most of the weekend, so far. The only thing that maybe could trip them up is maybe, if Mercedes-Benz are a lot quicker than than expected, and maybe are in the fight for pole, maybe that will cause a bit of an upset and mess up their session a bit. But if the fight is between Ferrari and Red Bull, then I'm still sticking with Ferrari in the battle pole. In terms of the race, the pace for their their race pace does not look too great, but thankfully they look like they've got the pace to be definitely on pole and fighting with Red Bull in the race, even though Red Bull look very strong and look like they might come out on top in that particular battle. Yeah, Ferrari looking great, and fingers crossed it'll be a third pole position for them in the last 4 races, which is just a clear indication as to the improvement this team has made in the second half of this season, and is a really good omen going into next season. They've definitely improved compared to what they were like in the first half of the season. Everybody can see that clearly. And yeah, if they can make some more progress over the winter, then you never know what next year could bring. But let's now go on to McLaren. And yeah, McLaren have shown a lot more pace than what we saw in in practice 2, but I don't think still they're that quick. Let's say, for example, Mercedes end up as the 3rd best team in qualifying. McLaren ended up 4 tenths of a second slower than Russell. So at best, McLaren look like they're going to be the 4th quickest team, which is not massively worse than what they were expecting this weekend, but it is definitely a tad worse than expected. Coming into the weekend, I thought they would be the 3rd best team, but they look like they would be fortunate to be that at this stage. They don't seem to be as quick, and their car doesn't seem to be getting to grips with the circuit as well as I expected. And it's not been as quick in general as I expected to be. So yeah, McLaren to a full degree on the back foot, I would say. But I don't think they're, I don't think it's panic stations necessarily. As long as both drivers have a good session, I think they probably should get both cars into Q3. The only positive really that I saw in the only positive really that I saw in practice 3 is they were quicker than Aston Martin by quite a decent margin, which was good to see, because obviously in practice 2, Alonso was 3rd quickest and was a lot quicker than the 2 McLarens. I think he was about 2nd quicker than the 2 McLarens in practice 2. So that is very positive to see. from McLaren. But other than that, yeah, it's not looking like it's going to be that great of a session, unfortunately. But as long as they get both cars into the top 10, if they are, only the fourth best team, then yeah, if they can get both cars into the top 10, then they'll just have to go from there, see whatever they can get, but it probably won't be a top 5. And the final front-running team we will go on to is Aston Martin. And Aston Martin, definitely not a positive session for them in practice 3. Aston Martin just didn't seem to be that quick at any point of the session. They're not slow, don't get me wrong, but they don't seem as quick as I expected them to be in this session. Well, not in this, but I saw in practice 3. They didn't seem to be as quick as I hoped, and as I predicted. Obviously, I predicted them for qualifying to end up in 5th place. I will still stick with that prediction, but yeah, it's looking a lot more unlikely that's going to happen. But you never know. Maybe they were sandbagging a bit, and maybe they will show their true pace in qualifying. But yeah, it didn't look as good. What we saw from Aston Martin didn't look as good as what we saw from Friday practice and practice 2. If you're an Aston Martin fan, I wouldn't be too confident going into qualifying, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be the greatest session compared to maybe the expectation what it could have been after 3rd practice. Let's now go on to Alpine. Alpine, yeah, they look very slow. They look like one of the slowest teams, and I think they've got no chance of being getting into Q3. Best I can see is them getting one car into Q2, but other than that, I don't see them getting into the what do you call it? I don't see them getting into the third part of qualifying. I just don't think they've got anywhere near enough pace. The straight line speed they're lacking, and they're just slow basically in all of the sectors. Yeah, Alpine not in good shape at all. Williams looked pretty good in 3rd practice. Logan Sargent up in 3rd. Alex Albon in 6th place. Yeah, competitive with both cars, but again, difficult to say where they're going to be necessarily exactly in qualifying. Looking at looking at practice 3, they were quicker than Aston Martin, so maybe they will have a car legitimately fast enough to get into qualifying, but it's hard to say because of course we had those last few minutes of the session cancelled basically because of Alex Albon causing a red flag. So who knows, whether they still would have ended the session quicker than Aston Martin. But it is looking good. And I think if you look at, coming out of practice 3, if you look at the midfield teams and who is most likely to get a car into the top 10 after what we saw in practice 3, it is probably Williams. I still am sticking with Alfa Romeo to get a car into the top 10, but from what I saw in practice 3, signs are very encouraging. So watch out for Williams. I still ultimately don't think they will get a car into Q3, but I think they will be very close. Alpha Tauri, they're the slowest team, no doubt about it. I would be surprised if they got a car into Q2. That is how bad they've looked. Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas has, he's been very quick this weekend, was 5th in practice 2, 9th in practice 3. And I am still sticking with my prediction. I think he will end up getting into the top 10 and will end up As I predicted, qualifying in 6th place. Zhou Guan Yu, I think, is very likely to be knocked out in Q1 because the amount of lap time he is losing to his teammate is alarming. He's losing so many tenths of a second, to his teammates. So, yeah, I think Zhou. I think I'd be surprised if he, had a good qualifying or even a decent qualifying, given how all over the place he's looked and how slow he looked compared to Valtteri Bottas in uh how slow he's looked compared to Valtteri Bottas in practice so far. So yeah, Bottas is the main man for the team, and hopefully he can get into the top 10. And Haas also looking decent. Their pace is, it's good enough for them to be contenders to get into the top 10, but I don't think they have got a good enough car to get into the top 10. So that's why I think they will end up probably having both cars eliminated in Q2. But ultimately, yeah, just not quick enough or close enough to get into the top 10. But they could be a surprise package. So watch out for them in the session. And let me just go back to these pictures. And yeah, we've got an hour and 25 minutes to go until qualifying starts. And I've got to be honest with you guys, I am not feeling well. I feel very tired and I feel like I am slurring my speech quite a lot. And I don't feel good at all. So yeah, make sure to keep posting your comments in the chat. But I've got to be honest, I am not feeling very good right now. And the reason this is because since um since Wednesday, since I woke up on Wednesday, I've just not had enough sleep. On Wednesday going into Thursday, I had about 5 hours sleep, then woke up again, and then I I was what do you call it? Awake for a bit too long. Then I went back to sleep for what was it, like 3 or 4 hours, then woke up, did my weekend preview. Then I went to sleep for another 3 hours, then woke up and did the practice one watch along, then went to sleep again. Had about 6 to 7 hours sleep, which might sound for other people enough sleep, but for me is not. I need, around 10 hours sleep to really be properly functionable. And then, I got straight up, set up the qualifying preview, did that, and then I've been awake ever since. And then, I've already been live for about 2.5 hours. So yeah, I'm not feeling good. I feel I feel like I've been hit in the head with a baseball bat. So yeah. Let me read a couple comments from you guys for the time being. Blue Flag Alpha saying, so far this Grand Prix is a circus. If that happened to his car, talking about Toto Wolff, he wouldn't even dare to say that. True. Imagine paying so much for a ticket and then getting kicked out. If it happened to me, I'd be absolutely fucking fuming. F1 didn't even mention anything about the drain cover on the website. They are very quiet about that. Yeah, on the website, where they do have a little small article about how Carlos Sainz has got a 10-place grid penalty, but they have listed it on their website as a practice incident. Just shows you how embarrassing it is for the Formula One. But yeah, I've got to be honest, guys. I don't know how I'm going to get through the rest of this stream because, I mean, I'm still going to be live for another, nearly 3 hours, and I feel, yeah, horrendous. Got quite sore throat for some reason. Don't know why that is. Probably because of the lack of sleep. And yeah, I've got quite a bit of a headache, and I feel like I'm slurring my speech and dozing off. So yeah, I think, and I know this is going to sound bad, but I think I might have to make an emergency decision here to not continue because yeah, I really don't feel good, and it is because of lack of sleep. I'm not, this is not like a medical issue or anything. I don't think, or I hope not, but I don't see how I can get through another 3.5 hours. Oh, not 3.5 hours, 3 hours of streaming. Um, yeah, I've just not had enough sleep in the last uh 2 days. Really, I've been sleeping basically in stages. 3 to 4 hours here, 3 to 4 hours there. Again, yesterday I had about 6 to 7 hours, but again, for me, that's not enough sleep. I need, about 3 or 4 more hours than that sleep to, to be properly, rested and ready to go. So, yeah, uh, DM in the chat saying Max Verstappen better win the race. Astro Steve saying Albon crash. Yep, he hit the wall at turn 5 and then his tyre fell off. Take a break and return in an hour or so's time before qualifying. That wouldn't work because the only solution to how I'm feeling is to go to sleep. It's not like I've had enough sleep and I've just been live for too long. Because you guys know I do these long qualifying streams often, and normally, I get through them just about fine. But because again in the last couple of days I've had a lack of sleep, it's just a lot more brutal um this weekend than it's been on any other weekend. Adam Wong Brooks for $2 sends in a super chat. And he says, chance to speak with rep for Liberty Media. Denied pothole. Is for that. But yeah, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Let me read out a few more comments and then I'll just try and have a think about what I'm gonna do. But yeah, I really don't feel good. And as well, I don't know if I've told you guys this before. Have I told you guys this before? I think I may have done earlier this year, but I do suffer from panic disorder, and obviously lack of sleep. Like, it exacerbates that and can trigger that, and I do get the feeling like that might happen. I really don't want that to happen on stream because it can get really bad. Steve saying set alarm, have a nap for an hour. Again, I don't think that would work because if I was to go to sleep now, I don't think I'd wake up for like 10 to 12 hours. Dan saying Sainz's penalty doesn't help Ferrari in their challenge for P2 in the constructor standings, considering it's difficult to overtake on street circuit. Yeah, it is a blow certainly for that, but yeah. Jay Perry says playing poker at Venetian, looking to snipe a free view for qualifying. Astro Stevo says was expecting quality to be on 3 or 4 a.m. my time, not just before 5 p.m. as it is now here. Yeah, it's timing wise, it's obviously very good for you guys in well, North America, South America, but also where you're from in particular. Australia, a DJ saying sleep stream. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of what to do because I don't want to end up having like a panic attack stream because it has happened before where I've, you know, like I remember there was one time a few years ago where I did a stream on this channel, one of the early streams I did on the channel, and I'd been up for like 24 hours straight. And right before I started the stream, I had the worst panic attack I've ever had. Um, and it was that bad, the panic attack. I literally thought I was dying. It was that bad, and it was purely because of a lack of sleep I'd had, not just that day, but in the days leading up to. And yeah, it's just concerning. Um, yeah, I, oh, I don't want to do this, guys, but I think I'm gonna have to end the stream because I don't think I can do it. I don't feel well enough. And in hindsight, I tell you one thing before I go. One thing I will not be doing for this Grand Prix next year is trying to do a watch along for every session. The reason I plan to do that is because I thought, well, it's a new Grand Prix. Why not just do a watch along for every session? You can see my thinking. And because of obviously what happened yesterday with, the cancelled practice one, the delayed practice two, and all the bullshit that's happened, it's, even more so fucked up my sleeping pattern. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. So yeah, my throat is really hurting. I don't know why. Um, yeah, apologies, guys, but I'm gonna have to do that because I'm just not well enough, I think, to continue the stream. What I'm gonna do though is I'm going to rename the stream qualifying build up so that anyone that watches this afterwards, um, that knows that we didn't actually do a watch along for qualifying, and basically we did a build up. So yeah, guys, as I said, apologies about this, but if I'm not physically, mentally well enough to continue the stream, then I can't continue the stream, especially considering that I was planning on streaming for another 2.5 hours, and I just don't think it would be healthy to do that. So yeah, let me get rid of the countdown, and I'll just quickly show you the schedule for tomorrow. I still plan, obviously, on doing the race watch along tomorrow morning, live at 4 a.m. UK time, 2 hours before the race starts. Make sure to join me for that. I will try and do that. And then obviously the next Grand Prix, you can see there the weekend preview for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix on Thursday, 8 p.m. UK time. But yeah, again, massive apologies about this. You guys know how committed I am to streaming. So yeah, you know that this is not like a typical thing where I will quit the stream halfway through. Again, sorry, you can hear it in my voice. I'm not well enough to do the rest of the stream. So yeah, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure to hit the like button as well. Obviously, those likes do help the channel and the algorithm, and it does show me that you guys enjoy the content. And what else was I gonna say? Um, what do you call it? As I'll end the poll in the live chat quickly. Where I asked you guys who will take pole position for the 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix, 421 votes, and you guys have voted for Max Verstappen. We'll see if that does turn out to be true. I'm probably going to miss qualifying, to be honest, because I desperately need to sleep. But yeah, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe. Discord server, there is a link below in the description. Again, guys, apologies about me not being well enough, but it is what it is. And yeah, I will be back for the race watch along, hopefully, and I will be hopefully well enough to do that. Apologies again, guys. And yeah, until next time, it's been me, Azar HD. Goodbye.